sort of practical method of practice. And I find that it's more, and Trungpa Rinpoche says this too, it's more important to establish a firm connection with whatever deity that you're practicing, whatever sadhana or visualization, whoever it is, whether it's Green Tara or Medicine Buddha or Chenrezig, it's more important that you actually establish that connection with that particular deity and the qualities of that deity. And particularly in this practice, because we are embodying the Medicine Buddha, and then, like in my case, as a physician, I'm actually directing the Medicine Buddha to do things to people's bodies, then it's really important to have that firm connection. And I used to have a little bit of doubt about that, because sometimes I would, about the way that I was doing, not about that, but about the way that I was doing it, because I can very quickly manifest myself as the Medicine Buddha from many years of practice. And it's not like, oh, I'm so fast at it or anything like that. It's more that it was just, it became very natural for me to just quickly transform into the Medicine Buddha and then sort of, say the mantra and sort of make requests. Please go into the liver and do this. Please go into their nervous system and do this. Please go to the gout in their big toe and do this. Whatever it was really a quick, full generation of myself as the Medicine Buddha. And so I had some doubt, like, was this maybe not the best way to do it? Did I really need to establish the whole mandala and the moon disc and then the hung and then the this and then the that? And I consulted both Anya Rinpoche and Trungpa Rinpoche about this, and they said, no, if you can do it that quickly, that's better, because that means that you're fully able to just imbibe the Medicine Buddha and then do the work. So it's really important to understand that it's not necessarily about the bells and the whistles, it's about the connection you have with the deity. So if you're newer to this practice, it's really important to establish that very clearly. So if you can't see the Medicine Buddha in his entirety, holding the Aurora in his right hand and his begging bowl in his left, and the healing nectar and the this and the that, you just concentrate on the blue, like a blue light, and then you concentrate on the white, the red, and the blue emanating. And then once that is more firmly established, then you can get into the form. The reason that we even have the 3 root poisons is because we're really attached to form. So because we're attached to form, we create our 3 root poisons of passion, aggression, and ignorance. And then, of course, that leads to the 5 skandhas, to the form and feeling and perception and mental formation and consciousness. So when we're getting really, really refined with the relationship with the deity, then we get into this formless nature. So it's perfectly acceptable, I've been told by great masters, it's perfectly acceptable to just quickly generate the compassion, for example, of Chenrezig, or the fearless qualities of Tara, or the healing energy of Sangye Menla, or the wrathful energy of some of the wrathful deities. So that's because we're moving beyond form, we're moving beyond concept, we're moving back towards our own intrinsic Buddha nature. And so it's important to be able to do that. And then in the beginning of this text, it basically gives you a description of the benefits of doing this particular practice. And this comes from before the Medicine Buddha was actually the Medicine Buddha. He made 12 aspirations. And when I do the weekend retreat with the Khenpos up at Shambhala Mountain Center, I go through those. So he basically made aspirations to end the suffering of all beings before he actually attained Medicine Buddhahood. And so this particular practice is said to purify many different levels of obscurations, and that even just by hearing the name Sangye Menla, that this purifies certain aspects so that you won't be born into the lower realms, for example. So that's one thing, is that you can read through the benefits of that particular practice. I'm not going to go into it in great detail today, other than to say that it does help you develop less clinging, less grasping, and more compassion. And then also, if you're in the healing arts, if you do the full Medicine Buddha practices, and then you receive certain particular empowerments and wangs related to the Medicine Buddha practice. There's empowerments for the whole outer mandala, and then there's empowerments for the inner mandala. And all of those relate to Medicine Buddha practice and practicing medicine. And when you do this practice, it actually increases your intuition. So if you're reading pulses, for example, you can read things in pulses that someone just out of school may not be able to read, sort of thing. And I've seen, like, the 5th incarnation of the same doctor who gave me my original Medicine Buddha empowerment. I've seen him read pulses and say all sorts of wild things that you're just like, how did you get that? And we have something in particular called the 7 wondrous pulses, where say your mother is sick, the son can go and cross the mountain and go see the doctor, and they can read the son's pulse and they can tell exactly what's wrong with the mother. So a lot of that comes from the development of retreat practice with this particular Medicine Buddha practice, and then the whole mandala of the Medicine Buddha. So you can actually develop your intuition for the healing arts further if you're in that field, just simply by doing this practice with great dedication. And I'm not making that up either, because I've seen all sorts of wild things. So I talked about the aurora in his right hand. That represents relative truth. So this is the relative truth or the relative suffering that we're engaging in. So this is sort of sickness on a very basic human level. So this is birth, old age, sickness, and death. And that's what the aurora in his right hand actually represents. And then in the left hand with his palm up, this is actually a mudra of meditative stability. And so that actually represents ultimate truth. So that's the absolute purification, or the ultimate truth of eliminating the 3 root poisons. From a medical point of view, we have what's known as the distal cause of illness, and we have a proximal cause. So the distal cause is always ignorance, because ignorance creates the 3 root poisons. And then the 3 root poisons kind of mingle with the 5 elements and then create all sorts of things in our form on a relative level. But if you actually want to fully eliminate all disease, you actually have to eliminate ignorance, right? Which is like, okay, that's a little hard to do, but through practice and many lifetimes, it's definitely possible. And we can carve off, we can shave off like little tiny bits here and there in our own life with dedication, and a lot of that comes from our own motivation in taking refuge. So by taking refuge, we're saying, I'm going to engage on the path. I'm not willing to remain in this dark samsara with this distal cause of ignorance. So I may not be able to fully purify it in this life, but I'm going to walk down the path towards doing that. So that meditation stability mudra of actually holding the bowl here is representing purifying on that absolute level. And that's also sort of talking about the result of the practice as well, because the result is creating ultimate compassion and transforming your 3 root poisons. So you see that also reflected within the mantra itself. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. You can either do full frontal generation, as I led you through today, where you imagine the Medicine Buddha, and then the light rays are emanating into you, you're transforming your whole being. Or you can imagine a moon disk with a hung, and that hung just can dissolve into you and you can become the medicine Buddha instantly. Or my favorite preferred method is that I imagine the medicine Buddha on top of my head, instantly dissolving and transforming my body, and from there I can send out the light in the direction that I want. Or if I have my hands on a patient, I may send medicine Buddha energy through my hands if you're doing any kind of hands-on work. Or if you're imagining someone who's going to be going into surgery, you can imagine medicine Buddha on top of all the heads of the surgeons. You can also imagine little tiny hundreds of medicine Buddhas going in through the IV drip. There's like nothing that you can't do. And I tell the story of, I had a patient who had 3 types of pancreas cancer, which is a little bit serious, and they didn't want to take any medicine. They were not Buddhist, and yet their relatives sent them to me to receive body work. And so all I did was massage. All I did was a Tibetan massage, and she didn't know that I was necessarily doing this, so you could take your own ideas about ethics with this one, but I don't always tell people when I'm imagining myself as the medicine Buddha and doing things, because my motivation is genuine. If you have genuine motivation, does it matter that the person is Christian and you're praying to the medicine Buddha to heal them? No, not really, because isn't Christ just really an enlightened being? So, I kind of come from that ethical viewpoint that it's like let's bypass religion here and just get into the healing of people. But, other people may object, so I leave that to you to decide what you want to do. But this particular person was not Buddhist at all, and I would imagine the medicine Buddha. We knew that if they were undergoing chemo to try and get surgical, because if you can get surgical, you buy some time with pancreas cancer. And if you're non-surgical, there's nothing really they can do, and it's a matter of 6 to 9 months maybe. And so they had 3 different types of cancer, a neuroendocrine situation, which is very aggressive. 2 of them were extremely aggressive, and 1 was not so aggressive. So when I would do my massage, I imagined the medicine Buddha literally going in and folding over and encapsulating the aggressive cancer with the non-aggressive cancer, to actually have the non-aggressive cancer fold over and take over the aggressive cancer. And they were also, of course, doing chemotherapy to get to that point. And they went surgical, and they came back, and they said to me, my doctors were astounded. They couldn't believe it. The slow-growing cancer had encapsulated the fast-growing cancer. And I was like, ooh. But that was not me. That wasn't some hocus pocus. That wasn't like, that's not to say that I'm any great being. That's the medicine Buddha's power. That has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with the medicine Buddha. So as long as you have full faith in the medicine Buddha, you can actually really help beings, even if you don't have like years of practice. And it's all about the compassion and the connection. And that person actually made it almost 3-something plus years they got before it took over. And I remember feeling very sad when it came back, and I was feeling like, well, maybe I didn't do it right, or maybe I didn't, and I talked to some teachers about it, and I said, I feel like I failed them somehow, because the cancer was gone. It was completely gone by PET scan. It was nowhere. There was no traces of it anywhere. And I felt like I failed them because I didn't do my practice well enough. And they said, no, it was their karma. This was a karmic disease, was what I was told. But you were able, through compassion and the medicine Buddha, to give some more time. So sometimes that's enough. And that's the kind of that's where being a doctor is not nice and very unpleasant sometimes. But I tell that story because I really truly believe it was the medicine Buddha that did that, because that was what I requested, and that was what happened. And apparently the doctors had never seen that before. So it is quite possible. So just the mantra itself is really powerful. And sometimes people say, well, how do you do the Medicine Buddha practice? And sometimes I'm doing the Medicine Buddha practice in the car on the way to the clinic because I'm really busy and have 3 kids. And, you know, I pull up at a stoplight and I do a full generation, and then the light turns green and I dissolve it, and then I go back, and then I'm at next stoplight, you know, and I'm sort of doing that, and then I'm setting up the clinic and I'm saying the mantra and I'm imagining the Medicine Buddha dissolving. So it's not that you have to necessarily, it's wonderful. Please do carve out time and do this practice, especially on Medicine Buddha days, like today. But it's also really important to not let time stop you. So learn the mantra, and you can say the mantra standing in the grocery store line, you can say the mantra, you know, while you're driving, you can do all these kinds of things. So the mantra itself actually leads to understanding this concept of relative and absolute truth. So when we're saying the mantra itself,